How much revenue did you guys close 2024 at?
We closed 2024 at $25,735,000.
In what industry?
Roofing, mostly residential roofing.
Residential roofing. And what was final EBITDA?
We did $4,944,000 in EBITDA in 2024.
It's incredible. And then what's the goal for 2025?
Double.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the OWNR OPS Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Gray. In this episode, I have Sam Allsopp joining me again. I had Sam on in season 1. Sam is a roofing business owner. They put up about $25 million last year in revenue, $4.5 million in profit, and he's got a plan to double the business this year. So we're going to dive into his exact plan, strategy for how he plans to double the business. Y'all stick around for this complete episode as it's value packed with a seasoned veteran entrepreneur in the roofing industry. Sam Allsopp, welcome back to the show. How much revenue did you guys close 2024 at?
We closed 2024 at $25,735,000.
In what industry?
Roofing, mostly residential roofing.
Residential roofing. And what was final EBITDA?
We did $4,944,000 in EBITDA in 2024.
It's incredible. And then what's the goal for 2025?
Double. If you guys have been following me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, that's been kind of the goal, is to double every year. And so far, so good.
All right. So we had you on the show last time and you sort of just took us through your journey, 0 to 25. What's been going on since then?
Man, we have been, we've been executing on driving the, call it right, KPIs that need to happen to go double again. Right. So I think all the way to mostly the marketing and the sales is kind of where we're starting. How many leads we need to be bringing in? How many appointments we need to be sitting? What's our ticket value need to be? How many salespeople do we need to have? What's our revenue need to be per day? How many appointments we need to be booking per day? And it's just been executing. So when I referenced, so far so good, that's not just like so far so good because we're hitting all of our metrics and our sales are tracking for another 2x. It's just been getting after it.
So you close at 25 and then on the show or before the show, you were mentioning that January you were on track for your goal in 2025. How did January end up?
Yeah, so we were up 100. I'm gonna make it was in the 130% up on the month, right? So January 2024 compared to January 2025 in sales, we were up 130 something percent, and we are doing the same. I can actually kind of pull some sheets up because I'm on my work computer, and we're doing the same in February. Just back of the napkin math, yeah, about more than double the amount of sales in February to the 22nd of the month as we were in February 2024 to the 22nd of the month. So again, tracking to double. It's another story to go build that, right? Like we're speaking sales right now. So huge focus has been on building the ops team and pushing that revenue through and building it, which it's always a little bit of a hurdle, but we've done it the last 4 or 5 years. So just got to do it again.
You make it sound so easy. I mean, like, how do you even, like I talked to a lot of people and a lot of people would throw around like, yeah, I want to double my business next year, but actually doing it is a complete different animal. Like, how do you break that down coming into 2025?
It all starts, and I'll tell people this every single time. It starts with your marketing. It starts with how many appointments you're booking, right? So, what I do is we'll take our revenue goal for the year. We'll apply, seasonality based off of previous data to each month. We're going to set a revenue goal in sales for the month. And then I've got this, kind of process that I go through, and I've been doing it every year where I break down what's our ticket value, what's our booking rate, what's our close rate, what % of our revenue comes from re-roofs, what comes from repairs, all the different KPIs, right, that go into yielding that much revenue. And we break it down to how many booked appointments do we need to be setting per day. And we are tracking that literally daily, right? So I've got another sheet We're tracking how many appointments we're booking daily. And I know that if we execute on that number on a daily basis, as long as I have the sales team, that has the capacity to take those appointments, unless something catastrophic happens, right? Unless our close rate tanks, unless our booking rate tanks, as long as those KPIs stay constant, I know that we're going to trip over those numbers. And that's just how I've always looked at it. A lot of people say they want to do, like you said, I want to double. And then you actually break down, okay, what do you need to do that? How many appointments do you need to be setting per day? Right? How much revenue do you need to be driving per month? And they're not even close. So take a very data approach to this and back into the numbers that need to be getting done on a daily basis.
This episode is brought to you by Jobber. Jobber is an all-in-one software management solution for home service and trade businesses. I've been using Jobber since day one when I started Bear Claw. We use it for things like quoting, scheduling, invoicing, and most recently, I've been using it for our snow plowing services. I love it for snow plowing because we're able to create a job specific to the client's profile, and we're able to track visits each time we go out and plow. This is important because each visit is logged in the system and it's ready to send invoices at the end of the month. So I never have to worry about how many times did we plow a specific customer's account, because Jobber takes care of all of that for us. If you are interested in an all-in-one solution for managing your home service or trade business, look no further than Jobber. They're offering 6 months at a 20% discount if you use the link in the description below. All right, so once again, you make it sound easy. Let's take it to the top. Your marketing. How do you go get these leads?
That's the $25 million question right there, right? I have to be careful, and I'm kind of careful with how I, when I post these things on Twitter and get a bunch of questions, because people may look at a snapshot of where I'm at right now, right, and go try to apply that to where they're at. And it's not one size fits all when it comes to marketing. There's tons of different ways to skin the cat. And I'd be naive to say that if I was a $2 million roofing company, $3 million roofing company trying to get to 6, or 6 trying to get to 8, it's not going to be the same approach that we're applying to my current company, right? So with that being said, to your question, I mean, currently what we're doing is primarily a lot of Google ads. So a lot of pay-per-click ads. We'll max out local service ads. I wish every single lead could be local service. Those things are great. They convert. And then, we're using tons and tons of different channels, right? We're on Angie's, we're on Angie's Ads, we're on Thumbtack, we're on Yelp. Any marketing platform that you can think of, good chance we're on it. How much of our budget is allocated to each vertical at any point in time, that's forever changing, right? So like I said, before, looking at how many appointments we need to book, we also break that down to where those appointments came from and which channels they came from on a daily basis. And we'll push what's working. If we're getting cheaper leads from PPC, we'll go increase the budget on PPC, right? And that's not the whole story, right? I can go all day about this. Cost per lead's important, but cost per acquisition is more important. So you might be looking at your Angie's leads and going, oh, wow, it's $200 less per lead for an Angie's lead versus a PPC lead. And then you need to go break down how much you spent and how much revenue that drove. And you'll be like, the close rate on Angie's leads is 50% of a PPC lead, right? Because they're price shopping. So there's a lot to it, man. And it's been a heck of a process to get to kind of where we're at right now and how we look at marketing and how we make sure that we drive those results.
I think it would be an understatement to assume that you have a consistent pulse on this on a daily basis, correct?
Yeah. It's an absolute obsession. I mean, this is what drives the business, right? This is, in my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to hitting our goals. And I've got a constant pulse on it, right? I still, although our CRM tracks like 90%, 95% of this data, we have a process every single day where we take the data out of the CRM and put it into an Excel sheet that I've been using for years. Just because the same thing, right? They're like, journal your goals, right? Write it down, as opposed to typing it out on your phone. Just something happens when you have to physically do it. I believe that that's true with these daily KPIs that I'm talking about, because I want my team grabbing the data from the CRM, putting it in, not just refreshing the screen, looking at it and going, okay, here we are. When I'm pulling the data over, And it just hits differently, right? And we can also manipulate the data a little bit different than we could through the CRM. But
so you've done that since day one. You copy and paste data from your CRM into a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And I think that like the more sophisticated, I think now that we're talking to a couple other sophisticated operators, like a lot of people will use Power BI or like they'll layer kind of something on top of their CRM. That's why it started, right? Is I have a very specific way I want to see the data and break it down. And our CRM just wasn't giving us that information. So I'm like, I need to pull this out and put it in an Excel sheet. Since then, we've gotten a lot better at the CRM kind of telling us the data we want to see. But there was just something about that habit of every single day holding ourselves accountable to pulling that data over and looking at what it spits out. That's, it's been super powerful.
Interesting. Now, do you still manually do this?
Or no, my team does, but I still go in every morning and look at it.
Okay.
And if it's not inputted by 9 o'clock, I mean, we've got, it's kind of like what's going on. So it's still very much part of my day and I'm still analyzing everything, but no, I'm not going into every single lead channel and pulling out the, the spend and whatnot. So we've got a team that does that.
All right, guys, listeners, we're going to dive deep on this. So if this is too far in the weeds for some of you, it just is what it is. But I'm really interested to learn the psychology behind this. So there's something there, and I'm going to take note of this, Sam. So thank you for sharing this habit. My question, though, specifically for you as the owner and still an operator, when you pull up that data, where does your brain go immediately? Like, what are the first three things that you find yourself looking at every day?
I look at, are we tracking for budget on spend, right? So like, are we over budget or under budget in total spend across all platforms? It's the first thing I look at. So I'm kind of looking at how much gas we have left in the tank. Can we push? And then I look at, are we on quota for the appointments set column, right? And then we have a little formula that says, on the month you've set 4 more than you need to, right? So I'm ahead of quota. I know we're sitting pretty, and then I'm referencing back to the spend data and going, wow, we're under quota and we're actually tracking below budget. So we're doing really well. Our CPLs must be crushing. And if we are under, right, I need to go. It's the 22nd, and I've set 10 less re-roof appointments than I need to. My brain goes right to 2 different channels, PPC and Angie's Leads, because those are kind of the 2 channels that you can flex up and flex down. And then depending on where we're at with spend is how aggressive we're going to get there, right? So if we're 10 behind, but we're way behind on budget and I've got a lot left in the tank, I'll go pay more, for leads because it's more important for me to book the amount of appointments that we need. But it's very fluid, right? Like every day is a little bit different. There's no one size fits all. So it's tough to answer people's questions on like, what do I do? It's like, it's multiple different lead channels and just really understanding how to look at everything and turn things up and down and change budget and move it around. But to your question, I'm looking at where we at in spend. Are we on budget, under or over? And then where are we at on appointment set, under or over? And then what do we do?
Okay. How do you allocate budget?
I look at it between 2 different buckets. I've got my fixed spend, right? So I'll even go back, right? So I say that I want to spend my target this year's, call it $50 million in top line, right? I'm comfortable sending 6%, 7%, maybe even 8%, depending, of total top line revenue on marketing. I pull that back to what I'm comfortable spending monthly. Again, apply seasonality to those numbers, right? So it's not just going to be the same amount. I'm going to spend way more in the rainy months than I will in December. And we work back from there, right? So that's how we allocate budget on a monthly basis in terms of like the total amount that we want to spend that month. And then I look at it in terms of fixed and variable. So I've got my fixed spend, which is TV commercials. Angie's ads is like a fixed spend. SEO, right? I know that I'm going to spend this much money no matter what on these channels. And you got to apply that to the total budget so you know how much variable spend that you have. Variable spend being Angie's Leads, Thumbtack, Google LSA, Google PPC, right? So like you could spend $5,000 in one day, or you could spend $1,000 in one day across those platforms. So I look at that in variable just to make sure that I'm not going over budget, accounting for that fixed spend. Probably sound a little bit like a mad scientist right now. Like I'm hoping this makes sense.
Yes, it does. My question for you, let's say you've got a listener at the $1 million mark right now. They've started their business. They've got the initial team in place. How much should they be allocating to marketing? Do those percentages change at early stages?
I think that a fast growing company, right, and you'll hear people say different numbers, but 10 to 15% on marketing. And I say that very, very hesitant, right? Like I'm not trying to drive anyone to the ground here. I don't know your business. I don't know the gross profit that you're selling your jobs at. I don't know your overhead. So for me to just come out and say, you need to be spending 10%, 7%, 8%, it's not the best, it's not the best advice just because I don't know your business, right? I don't want to go tell someone to spend 8% of their target top line revenue, and then they're selling all their jobs at 15% gross profit, right? Or they don't even know. And then they've got office staff and all of a sudden they made $0, right? And you see that all the time. So, but rule of thumb, if you build out you price accordingly to account for, the marketing spend and the growth that you want to drive. Yeah. Anywhere from 5 to 10% is awesome. I mean, there's companies that spend 15%, there's companies that spend 20%. Go listen to a Tommy Mello podcast with A1 Garage, right? I think it was like, he was just saying when they go into a new market, like they'll spend 15, 20%, not turn a profit at all, but they're just buying up market share, right? So everyone's got a different strategy. Mine has been anywhere from 3 to 7% a year of total revenue on marketing spend.
Okay. And if you are listening to this and you have not listened to Sam's first episode, I believe we covered just how you should think about pricing jobs at a general high level and what gross profit the target should be. What is your gross profit that you shoot for?
Like 35%. Everyone has a different definition. Do you include commissions, not include commissions? But yeah, I mean, the thesis is that we price this at 35%, our overheads anywhere from 15 to 20%, and we landed a good net number. So that's tough though when you're growing really fast, because you typically are building out your overhead and your operations and your salaries and your trucks and all that in ahead of what you're actually producing, because your sales is driving a ton of volume and you need to get ready. That's going to cause some drag on your EBITDA or your net. So it's important you have a good CFO when you're doing this, just to make sure that a fractional CFO, controller, whatever, just to make sure that you're looking at the numbers right and you're not making any rash decisions just because you're not allocating stuff properly. Like it may look like you're pinched for a little bit, but really your backlog's through the roof. You've recognized COGS, you haven't recognized any revenue. Just make sure that you've got someone that kind of understands the financials of a fast growing service business that can look over your shoulder and make sure you're being smart there.
At what point? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to close out with 35% is what we've found to be good in the market, but we have a pretty large ticket. So
what is your average ticket?
I say 30,000. It changes month to month. I can tell you to the dollar what we're at right now. So in February, average ticket is $34,961. Right. Okay. So it does vary.
All right. So let's break down cost per acquisition and cost per lead. What's the difference for somebody just jumping into this and doesn't have any background in marketing?
All right. So your cost per acquisition is how much you spent on your marketing to generate, a sale, right? So that's how I view cost per acquisition. Now, some people, when I speak to them, they're talking more in terms of like acquiring a booked appointment. So I think it's just important to to kind of just define CPA, but in general, it's like I'll spend $1,000 in marketing, $2,000 in marketing spend to acquire a $30,000 re-roof client. That's how I look at cost per acquisition, and I break it down by different channels. Previously to that, right, like a cost per booked appointment is all that I care about, to be honest, right? Like, and I've someone listening to this could be like, that is stupid. You need to know your cost per lead, blah, blah, blah. Look, I, on a daily basis, I'm looking at how much I spent and how many appointments I booked. there's a lot of noise depending on what type of Google ad you're running. You could be bringing in 100 leads and setting 30 of them, right? But your CPLs are a lot lower, but your booking rates lower, right? So that you can just play around with so many different types of campaigns. And I'm not saying booking rate's not important. That's something we look at separately, right? So if my cost per booked appointment is going above where I'd like it to be, then we start digging, right? Then we're like, okay, maybe our booking rate is not great here. That's probably one of the main drivers. But from a snapshot view of what I'm looking at per day, I'm looking at what did I spend to put an appointment on a calendar, right? One of my CSRs talked to the homeowner. Yes, we want someone to come out to give us a re-roof quote. That's what I'm looking at. I'm less looking at cost per raw lead.
Okay. And you mentioned CSR. Okay, you drive the lead. What happens after you get the lead? Just operationally within your business.
Yeah, we've got a full team for that. We do, it's partly in-house, partly overseas. But we have an entire training program for these people, right? We're tracking their customer satisfaction scores with our VoIP system. They get graded on how happy the customer was. They're following scripts, but our speed to lead is, I don't have the metric on me, but it's under 30 seconds. Right? So like if a form fill comes in, under 30 seconds, we're reaching out, text, voicemail, drop, phone call, email, all of that. And we don't miss a single inbound call. Like we've got so many fail safes that at the very end, if all of our CSRs are on the phone, it's going to go to a third party service that answers it, fills out the information, and then it comes back through as a form fill for our team. So we do not miss calls, and we're reaching out to every single form fill in under 30 seconds.
Striker Digital specializes in SEO services specifically for local service businesses. Bodie and Andy, the two co-founders, have helped me get Bear Claw Land Services to the #1 search result on Google inside my state for my specific search term. If you want to learn more, visit strikerdigital.com. That's STRYKER-digital.com.
How many leads do you get per day on average?
Good question. Our booking rate is pretty high, just because we kind of have that luxury right now where we've just been really, working on getting our lead quality dialed in for the last X amount of years, 5 years, right? So it's different for everyone depending on the stage you're at or what channels you're primarily running on. But I mean, our booking rate is 70% right now, call it. And we're booking anywhere from 15 to 20 appointments a day. Some of those being re-roof, some of those being repair.
Okay. And once you book it, what's the process? What happens from there?
So once it's booked, there's a drip campaign going to we're building trust with the person that booked it through, a text campaign, getting them warmed up, and then it's getting assigned to a sales rep. We're doing intro calls, we're kind of setting the expectations and making sure that both decision makers are there and they've got enough time to go through, the proposal. And we're trying to book those within 24 hours.
Okay. And you schedule those for on-site meetings? Yeah,
we do have an inside arm to our business, but like that was just developed within the last year. There's a lot of tire kickers and there's people that are like, I'm out of town or I'm closing on a house. I don't have the house yet. Right. So it's not really worth going out. So we do have an inside sales team that works those, but for the most part, yeah, we're in home.
Okay. Before we move on to the next topic, anything else you want to add to just like recommendations for somebody thinking about getting leads and booking appointments? What would you coach me on?
I mean, I've got a process that I would like in a perfect world. If I had the time of day, I would sit down with someone and run them through exactly, what I do at my own company. And I'll just kind of speak to that real quick. Right. So I would ask you, what is your revenue goal, for the year, for the next 12 months? Tell me it's, let's make up a number, right? 6 million. Okay. Let's pretend this is a roofing client. What's your close rate? My close rates, they're smaller, right? Let's call it 25%. Okay. What's your average ticket for a re-roof? $20,000. Great. Let's plug it in. What's your re-roof rev split with your repair rev split? Oh, we're 100% re-roofs. We don't do any repairs. Sweet. Okay. Then we'll go through booking rate. We'll go through sales cycle. And then we're going to apply marketing as a percent of revenue. So you're always taking your marketing as a percent of revenue tied to your goal. So if your goal is 6 million, let's use a good round number. You want to spend 10% on marketing, right? Apply seasonality and then break that out into how much you need to be spending per month. And then we're going to go and break down how many appointments, for this example, right? How many re-roof appointments, not leads, how many re-roof appointments do we need to be setting per day at a 25% close rate at a $20,000 average ticket to ensure that we sell enough that month, and then we apply a cancellation rate, right? So we get pretty detailed. How many appointments would need to be setting per day to back into that number. And then it's a matter of every single day, and then we would apply, the different channels that I would recommend based off that stage of business, just for fun, right? I'd probably say LSA, yard signs, Angie's Ad, Angie's Leads, Thumbtack. Should probably have some type of SEO going. Should have a really good referral program. For 6 million, probably door knocking, warm neighborhoods, having some sort of door knocking program in place, at least knocking the 6-pack. Maybe Yelp, maybe some sort of small postcard campaign. And then we would break that out into all the different channels. We would break that out into, what percent I would recommend spending in each channel, per month. And we go execute, and we make sure that we are staying within budget and making sure that we are setting, the daily required number of appointments per day to hit that number. And if you're not, you got to go tweak things. And that's something you got to be doing every single day.
Okay. All right. I'm going to dive deeper on this. Can we use a goal of 2 million? And let's say the company is hovering right around 1 million, the current company in the example. And I want to get specific. And the reason being is because I know a lot of our listeners are in this phase right now. And I want to get as specific as getting your recommendation per what you've mentioned on the specific channels at that phase.
So your rev goal is 2 million.
Yep. Let's say your goal is just to double this year and you're currently at 1 million. So can we go through this specific example? So you're saying 10% of your total goal towards marketing, correct?
Yeah, let's use that number. It's an easy number. Yep.
So $200K for the year. And let's break that down over 12 months. And you keep mentioning seasonality. Can you tell us which months will be seasonal and which months will not? Or excuse me, how you should break down your budget per the seasonal recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, it's so case by case and it's industry specific. So I'll just use I'll use an example of like me, right? I mean, that's a bad example because we're in South Florida and it's pretty year round. But say that you are a roofer and December, January, February are tough, right? We're not going to go sit there and divide 2 million by 12 and, put that $166,667. We're not putting that on every single month, right? Because that's not realistic. You know that those 3 months out of the year are going to be a little bit lower. So you would just apply essentially a seasonality where you would drop that number down to a realistic revenue target. And then you're going to take that, revenue that you would have gotten in those months and apply it to add it on to the months where you're more in season. That's all that is. And
what would be realistic? Just if it's 16,000, let's call it, $16,600 per month is your average marketing budget broken down on the 12-month cycle. How much would you drop off of that in your slow months, December, January, February? And how much would you, let's start there. How much would you drop off of those 3 months?
A direct proportion of how much you're dropping in your total revenue goal. Because that's what your spend is going to drive that revenue. So start with the revenue and say, I know I need to be doing $166,000 a month spread out over 12 months. I know that in December, I'm going to do 50 grand, right?
Okay.
60 grand, multiply by that 60 grand by the 10%. And then that's your budget for the month. You just need to make sure that you're going to go flex up spend in those other months to drive the revenue over the 166,000 of the other months.
Sure. So for this example, should we bump it down to 50% of that, or should it be 25% just for this example?
Yeah. I mean, let's say that, for roofing, right? Like I've seen some people that, it goes down to almost nothing, right? Like they need to be doing, call it, for this example, I want to be doing $166,000 a month in revenue. They may only sell a $50,000 in December. And that's probably someone from their pipeline from previous months, right? That finally just pulled the trigger. So you would just need to make sure that you're applying, it's estimating at the end of the day, right? That's why like there's no one specific, we're talking very proactive, and a lot of this is reactive. So like we can set it up as pretty as we want and make assumptions on what we're going to do that month. But the reason that we look every single day and every single month at the end of the month is because we got to move stuff around, right? Like if we're setting this up for the year and we think, let's estimate that we're going to do 100,000 instead of 166, great. You multiply your 100 by your 10% of marketing, you got your plan, you're going and executing every day. But then let's say you only sell 50,000, right? Well, now you're a little over budget as a percent of revenue. So you need to account for that. And then you need to go add that extra revenue onto the next months where you're going to do more volume. So you got to be fluid, and it's just a constant game of balancing budget, with your rep goals.
Perfect. All right. So let's say we cut that budget all the way down to zero in December, January, February. Mm-hmm. That gives us an extra $50,000 in spend to go allocate to some other months. Just being in the space as an operator, like what's going to be your top 3 months, or how do you allocate that extra additional $50K?
That's a good way to put it, right? Yeah. Let's assume that it's zero. So you're getting 16,667 times 3. You just unlock that much, marketing budget that you didn't spend in those down months. I mean, for me, right, like when it rains, it is when we get the most business. So I'm looking at summer months in South Florida. That's when I'm going to go spend a ton on marketing and drive a ton of leads. So any excess budget I have from previous months, I know that I'm going to be, going to be applying that to when there's more demand. And a little tip for everyone, like if you go into your PPC account, there's like there's a section in there where you can actually look up search volume, right? So you can't get around the macro environment of your specific, I don't want to limit anyone. You can force stuff, right? You can get out there and knock in 1 degree weather and convince people, to get a quote. But for the most part, we got to be realistic with the macro environment and search volume. So if you're looking to start planning, get with your PPC person or YouTube it and go into your PPC account and look at your the monthly search volume for your keywords and use that as a guide to kind of the variability that you should be applying for your seasonality. That's a good way to kind of get an idea of because every single market's different, every single service is different. And that's looking at demand search volume is probably the best way. If you don't know off the top of your head, if you don't have the numbers, that's the best way to start.
Now, I'm very familiar with running Facebook ads. I personally haven't dove much into Google ads yet. So my question, apologize if it's a naive question here, but for someone jumping into that, it will break down the monthly search volume for the specific search term. And can you break it down geographically as well, all the way down to the city and the county?
Ooh, I haven't done this in a while, but yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe you can. So you can really start seeing, and it also projects, unless Google, they do updates all the time. Last time I was in there, it'll project, you can do it for this month, and then it'll project the search volume for the next months. Pretty cool tool, something that a lot of people don't know about. Yeah.
And that's within just Google AdWords. Is that correct?
Yeah. That'd be in your PPC account.
Okay. All right.
It's called like keyword. It's not keyword planner. It's, I don't know, all the serious PPC guys are probably laughing at me right now, but I haven't done it in a while. I haven't ran my own PPC ads in a while. So it's in there. Just YouTube it, Google it.
If you're a serious PPC guy or gal, just post in the comments below whatever the name of that specific tool is.
Yeah, help me out. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right. So you decide to allocate that 50K to your highest months based on this keyword plan. And I'm just looking to get like a general plan.
Yeah. No, great
right?
questions.
Like, but as a reminder for listeners, like this is a fluid, dynamic activity. And Sam is continually revisiting this on a day-to-day basis to change his decisions and update those decisions. But putting a general plan together, you have 50K extra, all right, to go into your busy months. Let's call it June, July, August. How do you break down? So let's say in those 3 months, right? What did we say? You had 16,667. Let's just say you're on average doubling your budget during those months since you're cutting it in the winter months. You have $33,334 to spend in June, July, and August. At the 1 million mark, if somebody's trying to get to 2, which channels do you specifically recommend they don't overlook?
So I'll answer that generally, and then I'll ask you to give me like an avatar. But for the most part, actually, I think I need an avatar because I think that, you know what? No, I'll try my best to answer this generally, right? So if you're, no, I have to, sorry, I'm going back and forth. It really depends on like, on what industry you're in. So like ticket value is important because the reason I say that everything's data driven, right? So someone who wants to do 2 million, right? Whose average re-roof ticket is 20,000. They need to be setting, I've got it in my sheet right here. It's spit out 1.3 re-roof appointments a day. So what I would prescribe to that person to book 1, let's call it 2 to be safe, appointments a day. I'm not even telling you to mess around with PPC. I'm not even telling you to mess around with, you should be running a strong referral program. You should be running a strong door knocking program. You should be doing some SEO stuff, right? Even if it's not a huge package. And if you want to be doing Google, you should be running LSA ads. Easier said than done. Have someone manage your LSA if you've never done it. But that's all you're running, right? So that, I'm just kind of backing into why I responded that way. That's a totally, totally different prescription than someone who's a painter that wants to do 2 million, whose average ticket is $4,000 at a 25% close rate. You need 6.5 appointments a day. Right. So that appointments per day driver is really, really important. And that's how I would kind of think through what your marketing strategy should be. Because that person I'm recommending that they're on Angie's, that they're on LSA. They still need to be door knocking, doing SEO. They should look into Thumbtack. And they're almost at the mark, right? Like 6.5 appointments a day. You're getting close to the mark where you need to be running some sort of PPC campaign.
Okay. What is that mark or general mark in your mind?
I can only really speak to, to what I've seen and myself. I started running PPC campaign at honestly around, let me put the numbers in, I can tell you. So our average ticket's 30,000. We were doing 2.5 and we were going to 6. Yeah, it was the year that we were going to 6.5 million that I started running PPC. And we were trying to book 3 or 4 re-roof appointments a day, 6 days a week. And through all the reactive channels, I call them, we weren't hitting our mark. So I had to go start running PPC to kind of force numbers and force appointments. And although cost per lead went up, we were at least hitting our goals to hit our revenue goals. So PPC is usually going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's the one tool that you can use to spend more to get more.
If you haven't signed up for the weekly newsletter yet, go to ownerops.com/newsletter. That's OWNROPS.com/newsletter. We summarize all of the learning lessons from the interviews with the guests on the podcast, and we distill those into short, actionable tips, tricks, tactics, and strategies that you can use to grow your own local service business. Sign up for the newsletter at ownerops.com. That's OWNROPS.com.
Referral program, LSA, and door knocking. That's what you mentioned. before PPC, correct? And so that's what you were doing?
Yeah, we were doing LSA right off the bat, door knocking like crazy. I mean, 20, 30 guys running around door knocking. That's a whole nother thing to talk through. How you structure that, how you keep people motivated, how you train on it, how you have oversight in the field, how you get guys speed to money, right? Speed to money is super important in door knocking. It's a grueling job. And the last thing you want to be doing is waiting, say 4 months for me, right? For a tile roof to get installed to get your money for the appointment you set. You want to be paying people weekly for setting appointments. We can, that's a whole thing to dive into, separate from digital, but it's encompassing of marketing, right? So like when I'm at the stage I'm in right now, everyone, kind of looks at me and that's does a ton of Google ads. It's not always been that way. It's just been marketing in general. It's been our strong suit. And yeah, door knocking is a big part of getting people to that like $5-6 million mark and getting there efficiently and not spending a ton of money on Google and going upside down.
Okay, we're going to leave people on a cliffhanger here for the door knocking. We're going to have to bring you back on for a third time and just dedicate it specific to door knocking, because I know that you're going to have likely a 40 to 60 minute episode to where you could dive deep on that. My specific question on this episode is going to be referral program. What referral program were you using at that stage, and have you changed anything about it, and what works best?
This could be as simple as just saying, hey, every time you, anyone, right, customer or not, gives us a lead, we'll give you X amount of dollars. Some people want more protection. Hey, if someone signs up with us that you referred, you get X amount of dollars. And it could be as simple as just some people don't even have that established, no sort of referral program. And it could be a gift, right? You can give them a gift certificate. It could be whatever, just sitting down, whether it's you with your team, and just deciding what your referral program is. A lot of people don't even have that. And then the next step is executing it. So it's got to become a part of your culture. It's got to be something that everyone talks about. So when you're collecting that final payment, right, making sure that your billing team is, hey, by the way, did you have a great experience? Okay, cool. Please leave us a Google review. And have you heard about our referral program? Right. It's just got to be something that you talk about a lot. Now, depending on if you're like a tech guy, right, and you want to, how far you want to go with this, I'll lead people to water here, like Go High Level, right? They have a really good, you can actually build out like an entire referral automated platform within Go High Level, where the homeowners can go make a username, login, they can fill out a form, it syncs up with your CRM so they can see if the appointment's been sat or if it's been sold. And then you can even get to the point where you're like automating referral payments. Again, that's a whole nother world, but to answer your question, just having a referral program and teaching your company to speak to it is half the battle.
What monetary value have you found to incentivize customers?
It again, kind of depends on ticket value. And the reason I say that is because if you have a higher ticket value, you're probably willing to spend a little bit more for a cost for a lead. I know what it costs me to book an appointment, right? Because we're tracking that every single day. And I'm happy to pay that to someone to give us a referral. And there's a lot, like check with your, state, local law. There's like funny stuff about referrals and how you got to do it. Just we made sure that we like cross-reference everything that we're doing with our attorney to make sure that the program is like fully above board. And I think it may be state by state and stuff, but yeah, I don't want to give bad advice. Like make sure that you're doing it above board and it's done right. So just get with your attorney and make sure that you're setting it up properly. But once it's set up properly, it's just a matter of executing and deciding what your cost per lead you're willing to spend for a lead, and then backing into a number that way.
Can you share your cost per lead or what somebody should be expecting?
I'm ecstatic if we're booking re-roof appointments at $500, right? My average ticket's $34,000 this month. We close at about 40. You can kind of do the math there. Like that's an insane return on ad spend. So for me, that's kind of like the max that I'd be willing to pay or to incentivize someone to give us a referral.
Would it be safe to assume that you would pay a customer $500 if they brought you a qualified lead who books.
Yeah, no brainer, right? I'm paying that to Google all day. So, why not pay Mrs. Smith?
Okay, perfect. Everybody loves making money, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if you present it right and it's you can like some of your best customers can just become huge marketing referral sources for you.
Awesome. All right, Sam, we're gonna have to do a third one with the door-to-door sales strategy and have you coach us up on that. What else on customer acquisition, marketing spend, budget, any of the topics that we covered today? What else would you share with listeners?
I will say we talked about this before we started. I have started to consult people to an extent on their marketing and on their sales. So everything that we talked about, the reason that it's there's no one straight answer, right? There's a huge need for people to kind of get handheld and held accountable to track these things daily, for someone to kind of tell them what they recommend what platforms they're doing, what budget allocation, backing in how many appointments they need to be setting per day, holding them accountable to do it, making sure that we're spending properly. I've kind of created something that can help people do that. Now, we've talked about my company. We did not talk about the fact I'm doing an acquisition right now. Like, we're about to double even more, a company about the size of us. So this isn't something that I'm going and being super public about. Selfishly, I do charge for this, number one. And then number two, I'm looking at this like an awesome acquisition channel for us down the road. No pressure to the people that are listening to this that I'm currently working with. But I'm just looking at this like this acquisition that we're doing now has gone so great because there's a personal relationship, none of the horror stories that I've heard from other people. And there's definitely value to building a relationship with someone, providing value, and then, hey, down the road they're looking to sell. We'd love to be in the loop. So I'm doing this, number one, to help people out. Number two, we do charge for it, and number three, it's a pretty cool potential acquisition channel for my company.
If people are interested, where can they find you?
X. It's probably the best place to reach out to me. I think I'm got a weird, it's Sam _ Allsopp, ALLSOPP, and then another underscore. But you can find me there. Shoot me a message.
Awesome. Yeah, we didn't even jump into the acquisition. So your company's gonna double after you close this?
We're gonna organically double, and then we're also about to buy a company that did around the same volume that we did last year. So yeah, it's getting crazy.
Insane. What's your end goal with this thing?
I got it in my bio. That's 100. I want 100 million. I mean, we'll be at 60, 70 after this. So that's kind of just like I don't do that. I do this because it's fun, right? Like I genuinely enjoy business. I think Bodie or one of them posted something the other day. It's like, some people like to play sports, or some people like to do this or whatever. They like to go out with friends, and that's like I like business. And as cliche as my goal is 100 million, you got to set some sort of goal, to be motivated day to day. It's to do 100 million profitably, right? Like I just feel kind of like funky putting up an EBITDA number, because people know that's tied to like earnings. So I'm not trying to piss anyone off, but yeah, I just put 100 million. That's my top line goal. Do it profitably and just build an awesome culture and an awesome company. And I genuinely enjoy doing that. So end goal is just to keep building and having fun, and I'll do it for as long as I enjoy it.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like you're going to be there within the next couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, we will.
So, all right. Well, I won't put you on the spot now, but I mean, what's next after that? You're 30, 32, 33?
I'm 29 years old.
29? Why did I think you were 30?
Well, I turned 30 March 9th. So we're getting there. I'm about to be the big 3-0.
Sometimes, or for some reason, I thought that you mentioned you were 32 last time you were on.
No.
Anyways.
No.
So you're going to be...
That might have been how much we did in sales.
There you go.
I think we're a little over 30 in sales last year, because our backlog is like 6 million. So we did like over 25 million in revenue, but our sales was much higher in 2024. But yeah, kind of joking, but yeah.
So by the time you're 32, like I'm placing my bet, by the time you're 32, you're already at the 100 million mark.
That's the goal, 100%. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge with this acquisition that we're doing. There's going to be a lot of cleaning up and whatnot we need to do. I don't know if that's going to organically grow like, my company I started from scratch is. So I'm not underwriting extreme organic growth on that front. But, with the trajectory that company that I built is on, we'll definitely be in that range in the next couple of years.
Cool. Well, I can't wait to hear about what's next after that.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Depends on, I'd love to, that's why I'm kind of started doing this consulting thing, right? Like I'm looking at the acquisition model and just seeing if that makes sense. And I want to get myself set up for success there if that's the route that we go.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you said Twitter is the best place for people to reach out if they are interested in hiring you as a consultant. Can you just give a brief overview? I know we just did an hour-long episode on marketing and cost per lead and cost per acquisition, but can you just give a high-level overview of like what you coach people on and specifically what they will leave with after working with you?
So that example that we kind of went through, right? And it was very, it was quick. We only have X amount of time, but the first things first is that's what we do, right? We go through what's your goal, all your different KPIs, and we back into a number. And every single person I've talked to, they are not at all executing on the number of appointments they need to set, and they're not at all executing on typically the budget that they need to spend to yield the revenue that they want. So there's usually a pretty big gap there. And then it's just a matter of getting my team in there and tracking on a daily basis, essentially what I do at my company, the total appointments that we're booking every single day, and being a thought partner on which channels to use, what % of budget to allocate to different channels, and someone to hold them accountable for executing on those goals, and someone to just like, a lot of people need the reassurance, right, that they're making the right decisions, and that's what we're there for, right? So I hop on and I'll help people out every couple of weeks, but there is a team that's helping with this, account managers and whatnot that are very familiar with what needs to get done. And yeah, if someone's, interested in getting some help there, it's not something that I'm really like pushing or being public about. That's why we waited until the end of the podcast. If you've listened this far, then you might be a pretty good candidate. Just working with people I see I could potentially work with, down the line. So.
Now, is this only for existing roofing operators?
I have an emphasis. I'd say that out of the 12 people that we're working with right now, like 10 of them are roofers, but I'm not, I like home services. I do. Like, I like HVAC, I like painting, I like fencing. I like what you do. Like I like home services. So I'm not biased. I could see us eventually getting into different verticals and applying kind of the IP that we did with the roofing to different services for sure.
Cool. Well, this is exciting. Thanks again for being on, Sam. I appreciate it.
Of course. We'll do it again.
Okay, next time we're going to talk sales. Listeners, thanks again for listening to another episode of the OWNR OPS Podcast. If you do enjoy this type of content, first off, like you heard Sam say, if you are interested in getting coached by him with that same process we talked about, you can reach out to him on X. That's at Sam _ Allsopp.
ALLSOPP. Yep.
ALLSOPP _ again. And we just launched a new website for the podcast. So if you guys have not checked that out, go check it out now. It's ownerops.com, OWNROPS.com. We publish these podcast episodes with home service operators like Sam every Friday. And then we send a weekly newsletter on Saturday mornings to you, summarizing the high-level points that we talked about. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet, go check out ownerops.com/newsletter. And if you're enjoying this type of content, we'd sure appreciate a 5-star review. We didn't talk about it in this episode because we didn't talk SEO much, but 5-star reviews are super important for home service businesses, and podcasts are the exact same way. So take 30 seconds if you're enjoying this content. We'd sure appreciate it. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. And with that, we're going to wrap this up. Don't forget, work hard, do your best, never settle for less. We'll see you guys next week.